Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's SecurityBoulevard.com webinar, brought to you by TechStrong and Keeper Security. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of TechStrong Learning. We have an exciting presentation ahead, but first, I have a couple of housekeeping notes to cover. First, today's session is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion, or you'd like to rewatch or share with a friend, the on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude today's webinar. If you have any questions for Zane, we want you to submit those using the Q&A tab, which can be found on the right side of your screen. And just for general comments, or you want to let us know from where you're tuning in, we want you to use the chat tab. Finally, at the conclusion of today's webinar, we will have a drawing for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so stick around to see if you're one of our winners. So our topic today is the secret to effective secrets management, and I'm joined by Zane Bond, Director of Product Management at Keeper Security. Now, Zane wants us to have an interactive conversation here today, so please chime in using the chat box and send in any questions, and we'll try to get to those in real time as close as we can. So Zane, that being said, I'll turn the floor over to you to get us started. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Not a problem, Cody. Thanks for the intro. So welcome to today's webinar. The secrets management, it's a fairly complex topic, but the core concepts are very simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen so you can see my presentation, and I will get started. Alrighty. So when we think about, I guess I'll start with a little bit of background. First and foremost, Zane Bond, Director of Product Management here at Keeper Security. I've worked on many security products over the last 15, 20 odd years. And within Keeper Security, we do a very important role in organizational security. It's really anything around your password security, access to your systems, and now more into the DevOps type of machine secrets and accessing those. When we think about Keeper Security, we've been around, founded in 2011. We have an enormous amount of customers, all the way from consumer customers. So if you're using a password vault, I highly recommend Keeper Security. Ours is great. We got a free trial. And all the way through to our business customers, enterprise customers. And one of the more recent components we launched is our secrets management solution. We have all kinds of other things coming out very soon, but secrets management, that's the topic for the day. The first challenge we run into is that more and more organizations are being targeted by cybercriminals. We find this is incredibly common. Unfortunately, there's just too much money to be made on the nefarious side of things, and so there's no end in sight. And it's ramping up, and the attack complexity, the attack severity, and the attack styles are just growing and growing. But at the end of the day, most of the time, what an attacker is looking for is they're not trying to get to your desktop. They're not trying to get, to your email. What they're trying to get to is some form of data. So whether it's getting to your source code systems to exfiltrate stuff, whether it's trying to get your most privileged credentials, the database passwords, the source code systems, things like that. Those are the most juicy targets that people try and get to, right? At the end of the day, it's getting that. And what they do with it, they're either going to ransom it, they'll try and encrypt it. How they monetize it is secondary, but more often than not, we find that credentials are used at some form in the break. And we think about Target, we had a server operating system, server operating software that had a default password. It was never changed, and that led to the whole Target breach. And so many of these common breaches that you find at some point in the chain, there's either going to be weak password security or terrible password security or a default password or something. More recently, SolarWinds, right? SolarWinds 1, 2, 3, and all of a sudden you had a huge supply chain attack. And again, what people are looking for is they're not trying to get your Netflix password. There's very little value in that. They're trying to get to the most privileged accounts that protect your most sensitive assets. And this is typically where secrets management comes in. When you think about the types of behaviors that lead to some of these breaches, or the types of behaviors that get you into a less than ideal situation, it is completely normal, right? You've got an engineer who needs to set up a website, and I'm setting up the website, but in order to get that done, I need to talk to a database. So I talk to the DBA, they create an account for me, and I've got it. I'm on the server, I'm setting up this website, and I need to put the password somewhere. 9 times out of 10, at that time, everybody knows that the ideal place to store the password is not in a config file in plain text. But you for one reason or another, it happens. Whether it's, hey, we're just going to do this in development, and when we get to prod, we'll secure it and we'll move it somewhere else. Or I don't have a better solution, I don't know what to do. But for one reason or another, these credentials will end up in typically one of 3 places, right? They'll be hard-coded into configuration files. They will be embedded into your source code systems. So maybe that's a little more secure. It's not on the file system, it's in the source code, but it can still be pulled out. And then lastly, maybe it's tied into one of your DevOps systems that does the deployments. Those are the most common places to find them, and each of them has their advantages and disadvantages. But at the end of the day, hard coding credentials into your apps is challenging, and it creates a lot of a problem. So the first answer to the question of the day, what is the secret to effective secrets management? It's actually managing them. It is making sure that you don't have hard-coded credentials all over the place. It's making sure that you're not using default passwords, making sure that you're not utilizing some of these industry-known faux pas. And for the most part, it's about building a system in your organization that allows everybody to have that, right? At some point, you're going to have somebody new who doesn't know better, and they're going to have to make decisions. If you as an organization have a policy, and hopefully that policy is use Keeper Secrets Manager, that'd be great. If it's not, that's fine. But have some kind of a policy that says, don't hard code stuff into config files. Don't hard code stuff into your source code. Don't put it into the build system. Put it in a vault somewhere. Put it somewhere where it can be audited, where it can be tracked, where you can understand usage, where you can really know what's happening with these most privileged accounts, the things that protect your crown jewels. Make sure that those have a good amount of security. And then as you deploy more, your environment gets more complex. Maybe you've got AWS infrastructure, maybe you've got Azure. Now you've got 2 different vaults you have to worry about. Maybe you're using Jenkins or GitHub Actions. Each of those has their own vaults. So now you start running into the problem of, maybe I'm not hard coding it, maybe I'm putting it into one of these other vaults or one of these systems, and now you end up with a slightly different problem, which is secret sprawl. Now you just have them all over the place. Somebody could be picking it up and reusing it without you knowing it, and so you introduce additional risk when it comes time to maybe a certificate's expired and you need to put down a new one, or maybe a credential needs to be rotated either through a termination, or maybe it's just expiring, or maybe it's company policy, whatever it is. Changing some of these credentials becomes so risky that in many organizations, it's much easier to just say, it's a service account, we'll never change it, just let it sit there forever. And then it does, and it never gets updated, and it never really gets changed or rotated. And people that need it can see it. Especially if you're using SSH keys, they'll end up on everybody's desktops, into their SSH stores. And now you just have these access vectors to critical systems that you actually have no idea about. You don't know if somebody's using it or has it stored. So that's the short version of what is the secret to effective secrets management. Just do something, do anything. Protect your secrets. All right. So what do we do as Keeper Security? We provide tools that are cloud native, zero knowledge, zero trust, and built for modern organizations. I'm going to take a minute to just talk about zero knowledge and zero trust. You hear these terms thrown about a lot, but really understanding what they are and what they mean, that's sometimes a little challenging. So zero trust is it's an evolution of the principle of least privilege. It's been around in the security space for a while. Don't give anyone access to something unless they need the access. Audit the access periodically, and start with the fact that don't have like a medieval style moat. That's how a lot of security organizations were built in the past. You had your castle with a nice squishy interior, you had a moat and a big wall, and once somebody got into the VPN, once somebody got over that, it was challenging. Your zero trust privilege says that every system just natively doesn't trust anyone for anything. You have to get authorization. Somebody has to explicitly grant you access. You can't just say, I'm an administrator, I get to see everybody's passwords. No, that doesn't happen. You need a reason for it, and people need to share them with you and give you particular rights. Zero knowledge is a little more tricky. This one, at its simplest, is the vendor has zero knowledge and zero access to your infrastructure. This is especially important when it comes to security vendors, especially those like password vaults and systems that have access to your most secure data. Can the vendor, if the vendor was compromised, access any of your data? Or if for some reason there was a summons to retrieve your data for some reason, can that be done? And for many reasons, and not worth enumerating, the answer is nobody should be able to see your data. You should see it. And so some of the things we do to facilitate that involve ensuring that all the data is encrypted before it is sent to us. Anything that gets sent out is anonymized and sent back in an encrypted fashion, and then everything's decrypted locally. This prevents any type of man-in-the-middle malicious insider or supply chain type of attack where the vendor's infrastructure could be compromised, and then bad things can happen because of that. All righty. That's it. I'm not a big fan of PowerPoints and slides and talking through stuff. I'm much more interested in showing you our solution, our products, and what we can do. So that is exactly where I'm going to go. First and foremost, Keeper Secrets Manager. I've talked a good amount about what it is and what it does. You can try it out for free, see if you like it, see if it works in your environment. I know, especially with at least myself, I much prefer to try something out and play with it instead of like schedule a demo, have some sales guy talk to me, go back and forth, and then have them show me how it works in a perfect world, and then eventually get access to something that I may or may not configure. It doesn't align with how do I set this up, how do I use it, what needs to happen. And so from our perspective, especially with developers and engineer type of folk, they much prefer to say, give me the tool, let me play with it, and I'll go from there. And that's exactly what we facilitate. When you think about within Keeper Secrets Manager, it is easy to deploy, easy to manage, incredibly secure, very fairly priced. So from a product perspective, if you need to get to the system, we do not require on-premise infrastructure. We do not require servers to be set up and maintained on premises. We don't require any of the typical things you have that really just make deployment and usage of something new very difficult. We've got a web interface, and I'll walk through that in a second. We've got command line interfaces, we've got SDKs, we've got integrations into all the systems you care about. If you care about a particular integration, think about what your teams are using internally. Your developers, what are they coding in? Pick a language, Java, .NET, Golang, etc. We probably have an SDK for most of the major languages. If you're on the DevOps team and your DevOps folk are trying to integrate with the system, we have integrations out of the box built. So if you're on Jenkins, we've got a plugin. Just install the plugin, it'll pull the credentials from our vault, and your Jenkins team doesn't need to learn and do anything completely different. They continue using Jenkins. It just, the data comes from the vault and it's secured and audited in a single place. Alrighty. So let us log into the system and talk through things. First and foremost, I'm going to log into the administration console. This is the enterprise management component of our product. It allows you to get into the system, manage it at the high level, and it still maintains that zero knowledge and zero trust framework. In the product, you have management of the system, you have events, you can understand who's logging in, who's requesting access, who is creating teams, deleting passwords, sharing passwords. The core use cases for Keeper Security are everything around enterprise password management that you could want. It is vault access for your users so they can store their records. We have a login, Netflix. You store that, you have your username, your password, and once saved, they will show up in a browser extension, desktop app, etc. And this solves many of the human use cases exactly as you would expect, right? So you've got all of the core components that you would expect. I need to access my data anywhere. Is it available on mobile? Yes. Is it available on desktop? Yes. Web? Yes. Do we have a command line interface? Yes. Do we have an Apple Watch app? It's wherever you need to access your credentials, they're available. Secrets Manager takes many of those use cases that we've built out over the last 10 plus years and extends them to your critical and privileged systems. So where the Keeper Core product solves password use cases for people, the Secrets Manager solves many of those same use cases for your machines. So as expected, you can't do multi-factor authentication as easily. You can't ask somebody to check an email. It's a database server. It needs to log in and work. So some of the paradigms are a little different, but the core concepts are very much the same, right? I need to access my database credentials. They're available. All right. The first thing we're going to do, if we think of a particular scenario, maybe we want to give, we're spinning up a new web app. The web app has maybe an SSL cert, a database certificate, a database credential, and I don't know, maybe just a config file that needs to be started up. Well, we'll create a folder. We'll call this new web app. And within this, we just create some records, and the records that you care about, you pick the particular type. So maybe, like I mentioned, we have a database. So MySQL 04 and credentials. So this is a MySQL. I'm going to have the host name. And I'm gonna, maybe I'll, all right, and here's the basic information for a credential, right? I have this here. One of the things that you run into is that many times the people creating the credentials, the people that are, that need to get to the information may not be the same people that are interacting with the code or deploying it. And so you sometimes have this disconnect of somebody's created, maybe you have a DBA who's created a database password and they need to get it to the dev team. That becomes shared insecurely, right? And what you can do here is you can share within your organization. And from this standpoint, the credential is never exposed. It's not put in Slack. It's not put in an email or some insecure form. You understand who has access to it. You have everything around your record history, like who's it changed, what's happened to it, You can understand where things are shared, etc. The core platform here, the core vault, is available across all flavors of Keeper. The secrets management component is something on top of this, but the base capabilities I'm talking about now are available everywhere, right? So this is a credential. Oh, did you have a question, Cody?
Yes, and pardon a little bit of background noise going on behind me, but this first question that we received reads, can you create and revoke dynamic database credentials on the fly?
Alrighty, so when it comes to the dynamic credentials, that is something that is currently in our roadmap. We have the ability to generate the credentials. We have the ability to have them updated and rotated through any of our SDKs and APIs. The dynamic credentials are really interesting, and we're working towards that. So right now, for general credential access, that is available now. And then to have those rotated or updated or have any of the systems interact with them, that all works flawlessly.
And we did receive one more question, and they ask, can this work for family or personal use?
Alrighty, so the vault that we're looking at is the same vault that a business user would use. It is the same vault that an enterprise user would use. For personal and family use, for the browser extension, yes, definitely recommend this. It's awesome. It's great. I use it every day. For businesses, you get the addition of the admin console. So family will get the vault, and your family can share with each other and have passwords that are available to the whole family and only available to some. Whereas on the enterprise side, you have a lot more control. You have under administration, you've got nodes, so you can have particular parts of your organization, different offices. You can have specific roles. If I go into one of these, I'll pick a role, and then you have enforcement policies for the roles, right? Do I want to require particular complexity? Does my business require multi-factor authentication? Are there any particular platform restrictions? Like as a business, I don't want anyone using Keeper on mobile or the extensions, whatever you want. So there's an enormous amount of control you have around what can be done within your organization, especially around sharing. You can prevent people from sharing records outside or adding files. You can have IP lists. Transfer account allows for business continuity in case somebody leaves the company. Their vault and their secure records can be transferred to somebody else. And all this is done completely zero knowledge. Nothing on our end will ever allow us to see that. The keys are transferred from one user to another seamlessly. All right. So we have a web app that we have. We've got a particular database credential we've created, and it sounds like Cody might have some more questions for me.
I do. So this will be the last one before I let you get into it a little bit more. But
Sure.
This participant asks, is the tracking of who shared a credential only for those who shared it inside Keeper? And then they follow up, how would you know if it was shared outside Keeper?
That is a great question. So the sharing controls, when a record is shared, you can choose to share it to somebody within your organization or a particular team. So I think I've got an IT team. Let me see what teams I have. I haven't paid attention. All right, so you can create particular teams. So records can be shared with teams or particular users. From the administration component, if you do want to restrict sharing outside of your organization, there's an enforcement policy that prevents sharing with records outside of your organization. So if you integrate with your Active Directory, it'll pull in your users, it'll pull in your teams, everything will be synced. And you can say, these people can share records with each other without issues. But if you want to share to another account outside of Keeper, so maybe somebody at a contractor or a vendor, if you have a company policy that prevents that, then that will not be available. When somebody is in the vault trying to share this with bob@gmail.com, they'll get a limit that prevents that from happening. So from a sharing perspective, You have the ability to understand who things are shared with and what is going on. So this particular folder, it is shared with a team, shared with my DevOps team, it is shared with particular users. Alrighty, and then if you have particular applications that have access to folders, we'll cover that in just a moment. So we have created a web application. We've got a particular credential. What I need to do is make this available to my web server, right? And the first question around how do I do that is it's really how would you prefer to do it? Within the UI, it's a lot easier for a demo. I will create an application. We'll call this new web server, and I will give it access to the new web app I just created. I can then say for anything accessing this set of credentials, what should they be able to do? Well, I'm going to give them read-only. This web server only needs to get the password. It has no business updating the password. It has no business creating new records. It has no business doing anything else. If your business requires something else, you can enable additional permissions. Maybe you want the web app to be able to update the password periodically, or maybe you want it to be able to create records. Then you would give it edit permissions. Another thing is you're going to create a device token. The token will get locked to that device. In addition, that token on the device that gets initialized can also be locked to an IP address. So if I wanted to, I could say only requests from this IP address work. For auto-scaling groups and groups that go up and down all over the place, it's a little bit different. And you may want to turn this off. You have other controls to protect the access token, but this is one method you can do. So at this point, I have generated a token. I have said of my entire vault, of my hundreds of credentials, of all my secrets, one folder and one record is available to my web app. And that makes perfect sense, right? The goal here is that we want only the specific credentials that need to be available to the web app there. There's no reason to provide your whole vault access, and it should never be able to access anything more than that. So I've got IP address locked, I've got read-only credentials, I've got one folder, and from an admin perspective, I can tell exactly what's happening. I know when this is being accessed, when it's being used, who's doing stuff, who is it shared with, what is the record history, and we can go through and show a lot of that later. All right, so now we get into the more technical components around, I've got a web server, I need to do this. So I'm going to open up my system. I've installed an application, installed it with Python, pip3. And this is the command line interface that allows me to interact with and get credentials. So if I'm on the web server and I wanted to interact via the CLI, I would install the CLI. If I wanted to use an SDK, I wanted to embed things directly in the SDK, that's fine. I have my SDKs here. Pick whichever language you want to write in. We have examples for what is it you would like to do. So if I want to get secrets, there you go. Get secrets, initialize a token. All the documentation covers what you need to do. If you're looking to integrate this with one of your deployment systems, we have a long list of integrations that you can work through. So if you happen to be using, I don't know, Github Actions, you would then follow the instructions. And most of the instructions say, get the token and then use the token, right? So the first step that I set up is the same across the board. I have shared some records with some people. They have access to it. I'm going to have some snazzy web vault to do that. If you wanted to do this all in the CLI, it is fully available. It's just a lot easier to demo from the UI. And then when you get that token, now you have, well, here's a little video demo of what to do for the GitHub Actions, what you need, Cliff Notes, you need a token. And then what are you going to do? You go into GitHub Actions, and somebody who's aware of it will know exactly what to do with this and where to put it and where to request the credentials and what to do. Again, similarly, maybe you're using Jenkins. For this one, it's a little bit easier, right? You just go to Jenkins and you install the plugin. And then within Jenkins, you've got the UI, and you can click through and make things available to your system. And whatever credentials you want, just work natively with that system. There's no additional, you don't need to change how you're using Jenkins. You take those hard-coded credentials and you replace them with the variable substitution. So instead of a hard-coded credential, it pulls it from our system. All right. What I'm going to do is initialize that token. Profile init. So that token that I was given, I just initialized it on this device. So for all intents and purposes, let's assume this is some other device in my data center, completely removed from my desktop. It can be wherever you want. What I've done is I've carved out a trust relationship between this installation of the command line interface and a small subset of my vault. Only those credentials that should be available are. So, KSM secret list, and we got the database credentials folder. And if you want, every command has a handy dandy help, so you can understand. I'm trying to use this. I've never used it before. What do I do? All right, KSM secret, and what do I want to do? Do I want to add a new one? Do I want to download the SSL cert from it? Do I want to get a list of them? Do I want to get some template information? Or maybe the one-time code, you can retrieve that programmatically. So if you do have one-time codes and multi-factor that's needed, this information can be requested programmatically. But for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to list what's available. Oh, I did the list. In case secret get. And here you see on a device somewhere else with just the initialized token, it has been used, and I can get the information. I have what type is it, what's going on, login, password, and again, if I needed files, attachments, anything else, I could get that. Now, the important component is this is a one-time token. If somebody were to intercept this token and try and reuse it somewhere else, they cannot. Once it has been initialized, you cannot reinitialize with the same token, because that's the security design of the system. So if I attempt to re-initialize with it, it's going to say, no, you can't. This token's already been used. So this prevents anyone else from intercepting those particular messages. Now, communication between the server and the client, we have a great architecture diagram that explains everything. But if you've noticed, I went to the Web Vault, I created something in the Web Vault, and then I installed a little Python CLI, and I'm getting credentials. Compared to some of our competitors, like the Hashicorp and Thycotic and some of those others, I've not set up a server on premise. I'm not setting up the infrastructure. I'm not maintaining it. I don't have to update it. I don't have to worry about high availability or load balancing, or any of the fun things that come with care and feeding of an on-premise server to handle some of these things. This device talks directly to the cloud to get what it needs. If for some reason there is a hiccup in the internet and communications fail, you are able to set up a caching where the last request that was made can be cached. And that's very useful for machine credentials. They tend to ask the same question over and over. And most of the time, the password is the same. However, if it does change, it'll get the current. But if there's an error and it fails to get it, and there's a small bit of downtime, it can use the cache data, which allows for your systems to continue even in the event of blips and minor outages. All right, so we have the core vault that has shared credentials. Now, if we start thinking about what about the rest of the systems? What about our various bits of integrations? It really comes down to what does your organization need and what do you use, right? If you have a particular set of tools that your DevOps team is using, then that's perfectly fine. Pick the tool you want, whatever it is. We probably have an integration with it. If we don't have one, reach out to us. It's probably on the list of something we're going to look to build. That handles a lot of your DevOps use cases. Then from your engineers, if you have particular things that are hard-coded into your applications, what we allow you to do is with our small SDKs, you can tokenize those requests and you can request the information directly within it without having to rewrite your code, without having to do much of anything, right? It's very simple. Now, the reason we get this question a lot, the reason we use SDKs as opposed to an API is many times your RESTful APIs will provide clear text information. And while that's very easy to use, it's not very secure. Keeper security is absolutely zero knowledge. We will never send anything in plain text. One, because that's a terrible idea, especially over the internet, and two, because we actually don't have the information. We don't have access to it. We have the encrypted information. So can you technically use the REST API? Yeah, we have REST APIs, but what we're going to give you is ciphertext and a series of keys that are needed to decrypt it. And the work needed to figure out the key chain, the trust relationships and attachments, that's just not worth it. The SDK handles all that for you. So that's the reason why an incredibly simple and lightweight SDK is the preferred method to go. And we ensure that at no point is there any type of plain text to anything being exposed that you have to worry about. Next on the list, we have, within our CLI, we have a particular exec command. This allows you, this is more for your IT pros or your sysadmins who may have a script that they run. And if they have a particular script that runs, you can tokenize the passwords or secrets or credentials that are in that script to be pulled directly from Keeper, as opposed to sitting on the system and being hard-coded. However, anytime it runs, it gets run through the KSM exec, and it does that replacement, so it works just great without issues. Those are some of the three main use cases and personas that we've built this product for. And hopefully that gets you in the right direction. And let's see what questions we have.
Sure. So here is the first question, and this one is actually asked twice, so we can touch on it quickly. Is charity pricing available?
All right, charity pricing. We have a series of programs available for Keeper as a platform, and we have various discounts applied depending on where you are. So definitely reach out to our salespeople. The answer is yes, we'll definitely take care of you.
Awesome. Another question. Do you have any mechanism to solve the secret zero problem, needing a single master secret to get all of your other secrets?
Man, that is a fun question. So whoever asked that is awesome. I love it. The answer is yes, but it's complex. And let me explain a couple of things about that. First off, the principle of zero trust / zero knowledge, and the way we had architected the vault, as you're aware, the particular applications that exist only have access to a small segment of your vault. So at no point are you sharing your master credentials, your secret zero that gets your entire vault. That is something that you use to authenticate into the Keeper system, and that is protected with all the necessary mechanisms, right? This has, it has multi-factor, it's got email backups, it's got recovery, it's got auditing, It's got single sign-on. If you wanted to go passwordless, you could sign up with a password vendor, and through a SAML integration, you could literally create an authentication method into your vault that never has a password and never has secret zero created. On the back end, there technically will be some kind of PKI, something created to provide the access, but the ability to access the vault can be solved through completely passwordless solutions. Now, access to your development systems, access to your target systems, at no point do you ever want to give your entire vault to your database server. That's just, there's no reason for that. So what you're doing is you're carving out a small portion of the vault that is available to that system with read-only rights, with restricted and audited access and monitored. So for any of these, I think I just created, which one did I create? Whatever, this one works. So I can understand who is accessing a particular set of credentials, from what device are they accessing it and what's going on, and I can also understand failures. So in this case, you have the configuration that is shared with the target, and that best practices recommends get stored in a secure enclave, or for some of our integrations, they get stored in the secret vault of the system, right? So GitHub Actions, you store that secret that provides the access into GitHub Actions. But at no point does your secret zero, does your master password credential that gives you access to everything, no point does that make it to any dev system ever. So I hope I've answered your question. It was a bit of a long answer. If I didn't, feel free to ask any follow-ups.
There was one follow-up from the same attendee, and they asked if you had a side-by-side comparison to the Hashicorp Vault.
Oh wow, we were actually right here on the Security Secrets Manager page. You have how does our Secrets Manager solution pair up versus traditional Secrets management solutions? Most of the traditional things, including Hashicorp Vault, will fit into the right-hand column. So you will have to have something on premise. You will have to have mechanisms to unseal your vault and tie things in. You'll have to set up your own high availability. You'll have to maintain and manage the server and figure out certificates and when they expire. And you've got this plain text REST API that you have to worry about. And if that server goes down, what happens, right? There's an enormous amount of things, and this table kind of covers a good amount of them. And it really does talk into, towards the end of the table, it talks into the value of the platform. So Hashicorp Vault is a great product. We have an integration with it. It's widely deployed. It solves a very particular set of use cases and is not at all non-developer friendly. So if for some reason your DBA needs to get your credential and they're more focused on the database side and they're not a developer, they don't understand Vault, they can just open up their personal Vault, right? Sharing a credential is really easy. Like, I don't have Secrets Manager, I don't worry about it. I come in here, this is the CentOS file, great, options sharing, and poof, that gets shared with the right person. You have non-technical avenues to get this done. This is available on web, mobile, browser extension apps. So however people want to access their systems, whatever browser you use in, whatever operating system, that allows you to integrate secrets management and better password practices around your entire organization instead of having a subset of your population using this vault for a particular set of use cases, which they're good use cases and they do cool stuff. Right. These are fun questions, by the way. I fully encourage them. That was some of the more challenging ones. I enjoyed it. All right. So when we start thinking a little further into our administrative capabilities, we will be able to see and understand what is going on. So in the system, we have the ability to control who has access to secrets management in addition to the rest of the product. So maybe you have this deployed to everybody and everybody's got a vault. Well, Sally in accounting probably doesn't care about secrets management or want to care about it or know about it, and that's fine, we get it. So for a particular set of users, maybe your service account users or administrators or whatever you want, you can enable Secrets Manager for their accounts, and everybody else, you can have it turned off. This way that people that do not have a good reason to interact directly with Secrets Manager won't have any of that show up. And the simplest answer is it's available. You can still share with the people, even if they don't have access. They just don't see the Secrets Manager section. Their vault is simpler. They focus on identity payments or records or security audit or breach watch or their logins, the normal core use cases for Keeper. And then the people that need the technical access can get it. And then within the administration console, you control who has access to things. You can understand through breach watch or our security audit. Of these credentials that are in your vault, all of them, including your secrets, if we have found that they've been exposed on the dark web, you will find alerts and you'll get notified that there are problems. So if you are storing your API keys and admin access to AWS and all that, if you're storing that in the vault, as you would with everything else, in theory, if you're properly using Keeper, BreachWatch will just natively scan those, and we will have dark web alerts if, for some reason, your API keys get leaked. So that's a definite advantage. If there's any kind of password reuse or weak passwords being used, you can get notifications of particular problems within your user base. From an admin perspective, the administrator can never see the passwords. The administrator gets to know which ones are weak and which ones are not unique. And I can say this particular record is a problem, but they will never say password 123 is a problem. They'll just say this person in this role has a particular problem. So that's the security auditing and breach watch capabilities. Then many times when you are configuring your systems, especially autonomous systems, you tend to set them up and not worry about them, right? They're there and they're running. So our alerts and reporting module allows you to get notifications of particular problems before people may know about it. So if I wanted a particular alert, I can say I have particular event types. So outside of Secrets Manager, this is just platform. If I want to know if somebody turns off their two-factor authentication, or if they are given admin rights, or if they have their account locked, or if they fail to log in, or whatever the core components are, maybe your policy is you want to know when things are shared, well, you can get notification when records are transferred from groups to groups. You can get notified when people are added to folders or deleted, or maybe even entire folders are removed or teams. You can understand whatever needs to occur in the environment, find the things you care about and send those alerts to the right people. So maybe HR wants to know if people are exporting their vaults, because that's a little concerning. You can send them an alert. Maybe your compliance team needs to know when privileged or credentials that are inside the PCI scope are changed or not updated. They can get that. You can configure particular alerts for particular audiences. And within Secrets Manager, if you want to know when new devices are added or deleted, yes. If there's a client that is acting poorly, you can just revoke access to it and then it'll stop. If you would like to know if things are being updated or if there's access being denied or particular problems occurring in your environment, you can select the alerts you care about and secrets alert problems. And then from here, you decide how do I want to receive this? Well, if I really want to get emails, that's great. If I want to get a text message, that's a little weird, but still great. Have fun. On my side, I prefer webhooks, right? This allows me to set up a Slack channel. If there's a problem with some of the secrets, like maybe my app failed to build and I get an alert, maybe someone's deleting some credentials or removing clients, just put it in a Teams chat or a Slack chat. That way the team that's responsible for it gets this automated notification. Hey, Bob deleted access to everything. Oh, wow. Well, I really need to know about that. So let's figure out what's going on there. All right, question time. I love it.
Yes. So we have a question regarding migration from other password secrets to Keeper. Specifically about Hashicorp Vault, but what can you say about migration in general?
All right, so migration in general, if you're using a password vault of some sort, you can come into your settings and there's an import. We have out-of-the-box imports for all of your common password managers. We've got LastPass, we got 1Pass, Dashlane, just everything out there. I think MyKey, that's the good one. If you're using MyKey, you might have got an email that they're going out of business, just FYI. So we can just import from all those additional solutions. If you are using our desktop app, if you're using the desktop app, similarly with your import, our imports get a little more snazzy where, I don't know, maybe LastPass. Here, you're not exporting and importing. You just put in your credentials. We'll pull it all in for you. It's just completely automated. Everything shows up. So we've got some really good components. Now, if you're using a system that we're unaware of, or it's new, or it's different, we still have the ability to import from CSV or JSON. So any system that we don't have something built for, if you can programmatically get those credentials into a file, we can bring them into our system without issue. In addition, we've also got some tools to pull it in from all your browsers. Maybe you've got passwords scrounged, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, whatever. They'll bring them all into the vault for you if you want. That's a particular set of tools that does that. Hopefully that answered your question. On the Hashicorp Vault side, generally things are stored as KVPs, key value pairs. So exporting to JSON is usually the simplest.
And then we received one question or one comment. They just wanted you to explain Breachwatch a little bit more.
All right. Yeah, I glossed over that one a little too quickly. All right. So Breachwatch. This is available for all products, all segments. So whether you're on a personal account or a business account or an enterprise, or if you use it in our compliance module or a secrets manager module, it works the same across the board. So we have a dark web scanning system that will identify any credentials that have been breached on the web and particularly leaked. And then we will notify you that a particular credential is high risk. And when you open it up, you get the information here. All right, this is high risk. We got a problem here. What do you need to do? Typically, you resolve it, right? So on the Twitter, the recommendation is you go to that account and you adjust it. That is the simplest version. Now, one of the things we do, some of our competitors will send your email off to a third-party vendor to do the scans. We are zero knowledge, so we have no interest in knowing what passwords you have for what domains, and we're just not going to know that. So what we do is we get the hash tables of all the breached credentials, and those hashes are basically double hashed and blinded even from us, and then the correlation and searches are done locally on your device to understand which credentials have been breached, and they get flagged in your vault. That information is encrypted before it is sent to us. We are really serious about zero knowledge. We are really, really serious about nothing we do can ever have information about your records, your environments, or what's going on. And so in this instance, we have the ability to scan your credentials to see if that particular password was breached on the dark web. And if it was, we'll notify you. And Keeper has no idea. Your administrator, if you have an administrator using the system, your administrator will understand that certain credentials have been breached. They'll be able to generate reports and understand exactly what is happening with these, but they will never be able to see the exact passwords that have been leaked or breached. You'll just understand this employee has problems that need to be resolved, and within the alerts module, I can give you exact events. So breach watch will know if a breach record has been detected for a user, and we'll say Bob has UID. They'll never show you the name of the record. They'll never show you the URL or the password. We do have a compliance module which handles some of that, but out of the box, none of that is shown. But if it's detected, if a user decides to ignore it, you'll know, or if it gets resolved. And those are really the three main states for breach watch, right? Something bad happened. Did you fix it or did you not fix it? And through the alerts module, you can understand that for your employee base. Hopefully, that explains breach watch in a little more detail. One of the sister components to breach watch is our security audit, and the security audit focuses on some of the other most common bad paradigms around password management, and that just comes into either weak passwords or, more importantly, reused passwords. We'll also identify if particular accounts have multi-factor authentication turned on or not, and in general, for your most sensitive accounts, that's definitely a good thing to have, or in your vault, you need to have it. So the security audit score covers generally bad practices of, hey, I'm using the same password on a bunch of different sites, or I'm using 1234 as a login, whereas breach watch is the particular dark web scanning, just to understand what has been leaked out there. Excellent. We are actually at the top of the hour and running out of time. Man, I could have just kept on talking, but I'm going to keep it nice and short. How about on your side, Cody? Do you have anything on your end?
So I'll go ahead and give away some gift cards while we wait for any last minute questions.
All righty, that sounds good. I'll be available for questions.
So our first winner of, sorry, I've lost my list of my drawing.
Oh, I hope I win. I hope I win.
All right, our first winner is Yang K. Our second winner is Peter S. Our third winner is Alan D. And our fourth and final winner is Jane C. So congratulations to the four of you. Please keep an eye on your inbox to claim that gift card. And if you don't see an email, just check your spam folder. We do see one last question. It might be a little bit hairy here, but it says, if you were presented with a subpoena from a federal law enforcement agency requesting my secrets, keys, credentials of any kind, would you be able to provide that information, or does your zero knowledge prevent that?
So that's not an if. That happens more frequently than we like to share. So yes, we do get the subpoenas. And our answer is our zero knowledge architecture physically prevents us from providing this information. I understand you have somebody that you disagree with, whether they're a criminal or whether they're suspected, and you would like to get access to their vault. We as a company cannot give that information, even if we wanted to, even if we thought like, man, this is a really bad dude. We want to give you his information. We can't. We don't have it. We don't have mechanisms to decrypt the information, and all of the keys reside with you. Which is really, really on the flip side. If you forget your password, yeah, I'm sorry. So definitely set up, account recovery, because if you lose your master password, we can't guess one for you.
Awesome. Well, Zane, do you have any closing remarks before I close the program today?
I think the only thing I have is, I'm going to reiterate, what is the secret to effective secrets management, right? Just make sure you're managing them. Stop hard coding your credentials. Stop using default passwords. If you're going to use a solution, I highly recommend Secrets Manager. We love it. It's awesome. But if you're not going to use us, that's fine. Just please protect your environment. The breaches are just absolutely crazy nowadays.
Well, perfect. I'd like to remind our audience today that today's session was recorded. You can find it living on the Security Boulevard website at securityboulevard.com/webinars. And for all of our registrants, you should be receiving an email shortly with a link to access this recording. So Zane, thank you so much for putting together this demo, this presentation, and really showing us the nitty-gritty of how the software works.
No, not a problem. Happy to help out. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Keeper Security for sponsoring today's webinar. And my final thanks goes to you, our audience. We really appreciate you spending your time here with us today. And we hope to see you at a future TechStrong Learning webinar. Please take a moment to fill out our post-webinar survey.